Hunter Greene trade rumors persist to a point that has surprised me, as he is now being ranked among the most likely to be dealt.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Reds podcast. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team, your Reds, every single day. And my name is Jeff Carr. I'm a lifelong Cincinnati Reds fan, and I've been podcasting about this team for 7 years now, and I'm glad that you're alongside me here today. On today's podcast, Lance McAlister is going to join me, and we are going to talk about the two biggest names on the Reds roster, because Hunter Greene and Elly De La Cruz, there's lots to talk about when it comes to the plan for each one of them this offseason, because Hunter Greene trade rumors continue to gain strength, and the plan for Elly seems tenuous at best. This all leads us to a question, and brings me to the question that we will try to answer later on in the show, of whether or not we trust the Reds to get this right, as it feels like the window of contention is open. That's all in today's episode that is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app today, and new users can place a $5 wager, and if it wins, you get $300 in bonus bets. And joining me today, like I mentioned, from 700 WLW, he is Lance McAlister. Lance, what you got for me, man? Glad to have you back.
Man, I'm fired up to be back. Let's throw a log on the hot stove fire and talk a little Reds offseason baseball. It does not get any better than that.
Love the hot stove, and it feels like it's already hot for some reason. Like usually for the Reds, it feels like you got to turn it on, you got to let the gas kind of percolate a little bit and get going. But it seems as though we've already got the burner on 6 right now, and it's because this whole question that Mark Sheldon posed to Nick Krall, and Nick Krall did not immediately shut down the fact that Nick Krall is not, or that Hunter Greene is not available. And now, I mean, you hear this, you hear that, and now Jim Bowden lists him as the third most likely player to be traded this offseason. Lance, why on earth have we gotten to this point?
You know, you set it up perfectly, because it seems like there is smoke, and where there's smoke, there's fire. And I continue to maintain it doesn't make sense from the standpoint of the value he brings them. That contract was your classic team friendly. They bet on him. They thought he would get better, to the point that the value of the contract, if they could get him to sign it, would be worth it. And right now, I mean, I think the numbers are somewhere, he's maybe the 45th to 50th highest paid starting pitcher in baseball going forward. And even into a couple of years into that remaining contract, he's still around 40 or 50. So when you're this size market and you've got that type of young talent, and you're weighing that versus what it's costing you, I've never understood the return value. It's so good with him here.
Yeah. How
does trading him translate into bringing you more value? And I just can't see the return equaling the bonus of the deal they got for him.
It makes me think of the meme that was going around whenever the Mavericks traded Luka Doncic from Family Guy, whenever Peter has a box in front of him and his wife's going, "But Peter, you could have the boat." And he's like, "But I also got, or I could have this box, which could even be a boat." And it's like, yeah, you could trade Hunter Greene for somebody who's maybe even as good as Hunter Greene is. And I think it's interesting because, like you mentioned, like his contract puts him in a place where I think even without pitching 30 starts in a season, he's far exceeded the value of his contract. And I think that he will only continue to do so. And so I think it's interesting, like really trying to squint at this and see, okay, is there a reason? And the main reason is durability. And I think that we as Reds fans that watch this team think, well, he's just going to get the 30 starts. Like, we're not that worried about that. I think he could do it this year. But it seems like the Reds organization has put a lot more concern on this than we are letting on.
Well, and I understand that. And look, we're living in a day and age where pitchers are on the DL injured list all the time, it seems. Pitchers are more hurt now than they ever have before, and the days of 200 innings are long gone. And yet, what I've never understood in terms of concerns about Hunter and his durability, let's bring Nick Lodolo into the conversation. I mean, Nick Lodolo isn't exactly a picture of health and reliability on this team and giving you 30 starts and 200 innings. So I look at it this way. The other teams are interested in Hunter Greene because they're sitting there. If I were them, I'd sit there and say, wait a minute. I got a pitcher who's 25, 26 years old, who I can get at this amount of dollars. And right now, maybe I can count on 22 to 25 starts based on his track record, but I think he's going to continue to mature and develop. I think everybody else in baseball would pounce on it because of their projection for what they're going to get out of Hunter Greene. So that's why I don't understand the Reds. I don't want to say to rush, but I don't understand their I don't even want to say urgency. It just doesn't make sense for as long as you have worked to draft and develop starting pitching. And as much as we've heard, I haven't had one since Tom Browning, you get one. He's a guy who willingly signed a contract because he wanted to be a part of this organization as a core piece. And it's a sweetheart deal. Everybody in baseball will tell you, man, that was a good deal the Reds negotiated for Hunter Greene. So I don't understand giving up the advantage or the leverage of that deal by trading him. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, this would be like the Braves trading Ozzie Albies or Ronald Acuna just a couple of years after signing those deals that everybody was like, how on earth did you even get those through? Like, that's what this feels so weird to me about, because I get questions from other folks, and I was on a show the other day with a Boston guy, and he was just like, well, how about Jarren Duran, Peyton Tolley, and the password Justinson Garcia? And I'm like, well, that sounds really good, but also, like, do we need to do this? That's the only thing that I keep going back to, is like, I feel like we don't need to do this because Hunter Greene is a realization of everything that Nick Krall has said, that everything that every Reds general manager, president of baseball ops, guy who makes the trades has said in a press conference for my entire lifetime of we must draft and develop. Yep. They did that with Hunter Greene. So I feel like, and I'm hopeful that this is the national media running with rumors and going crazy with it, but it just seems like it's gaining momentum. Like the train is going up the hill, as much as we may be surprised by that.
Yeah. And the other aspect of this, which doesn't make any sense, if this team was over their projected budget and in a cash crunch and needed the money, one, it's not even like you're getting rid of a ton of money if you got rid of his contract, because it's not that big a pile of money on the books going forward. So there's no need to, you're not in a budget cutting stage of we've got to get under budget. So take that out of the equation. So again, and there have been moments where Hunter Greene has done the stuff that is ace-like, where he's thrown the complete game in crunch time, and he's come off the mound and he's pounded his chest and he's thrown his hands up in the air. And that is exactly the moment you've looked for in scouting and drafting and developing. And they've developed into the point where, yes, is it perfect? No, he's missed starts because of injuries. Maybe there's been some times where he's missed longer than people thought he should have missed. Maybe that's a mindset of, I want to make sure I'm exactly 100%. I don't want to risk the injury. I don't want to come back at 90 or 92% or whatever it is. I can kind of understand that. But man, on a team with a lot of unknowns, I know Hunter Greene, when healthy, can be a dominant major league pitcher, and that's a hard commodity to find, and it's almost impossible to find at the price they're paying him.
No question. And even from the appetite that the rest of the league has to this rumor, the fact that they heard that, and it feels like every fan base is immediately jumping to be like, this is what we would offer if the Reds are really serious about this. This tells you everything you should know about whether or not you should actually trade him. Like, it doesn't feel like that makes a whole lot of sense, no matter the fact that these rumors just continue to gain strength. And I'm surprised by it, because I feel like this team is moving in a direction that they want to be. I know that Nick Krall said the whole thing about eliminating peaks and valleys and all that other stuff. And while when you eliminate peaks and valleys, it feels like you're a 500 ball club, it does feel like their incremental progress is leading them to where they want to go. But if you make this trade, you really gamble with that process. Not saying that you couldn't make a good trade. You could, but the likelihood that you're going to make a trade that makes your team better by getting rid of your ace just feels so very small, like to the point that I don't even want to put a number on it.
Well, and let's add to the equation. If this is all about Hunter Greene and you can't count on him for X number of starts, X number of innings, Well, let's be realistic. We're also talking about a rotation with Nick Lodolo, who spent multiple times on the injured list. Andrew Abbott last year missed the first month of the season because of a shoulder issue from the season before. Rhett Lauder pitched a total of 9 1/3 innings all of last season, and none of those were in the major leagues. So there's certainly question marks about a number of guys. And Chase Burns, everybody loves Chase Burns. We haven't seen him over a full major league season. So, I mean, let's be realistic. There's uncertainty about a lot of arms on this team. Hunter Greene is the most proven of any of those guys.
Yeah, it feels like if you're worried about volatility, then in that whole joke of like if you're pointing one finger at Hunter Greene, well, you got like 4 other fingers pointing at the rest of the rotation. So let's not get too crazy with the volatility. And it feels like I just keep going back to the Luka thing. Like if you ask Mavericks fans, would they rather have Luka back knowing everything they know about the trade and what everything that they said about the trade? I think 100% of Mavericks fans would say, yes, give us Luka back. And I think that if a trade were to happen the day after the World Series and the Reds got rid of Hunter Greene, I'm pretty sure we'd be in the same boat. So I think it's weird that we keep seeing this rumor grow and not just something that someone said once and it's sitting there, but it continues to grow. And then on the other side of this, the Reds have said what the plan is for Elly De La Cruz, and they have convinced precisely nobody. Let's be real. Making excuses doesn't solve anything. We've all heard them before. It's just stress. I'm tired, or it happens to everyone sometimes. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support, and that's where Rugiet comes in. Rugiet.com offers fast-acting doctor-prescribed treatments for ED, designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. Rugiet makes it easy to get started. You just connect with board-certified doctor 100% online. No awkward waiting rooms, no in-person appointments. If prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly straight to your door. The process is fast, simple, and private, and it's all handled by real doctors. Visit rugiet.com/LockedOnMLB and get 15% off your first order. That's rugiet.com/LockedOnMLB. And don't forget to use our code LockedOnMLB so they know that we sent you. Rugiet, stop making excuses and start making moves. Make sure you are subscribed to the Locked On Reds podcast. That way you don't miss anything that we've got coming for you all off season long as rumors persist here and there and everywhere, and we get you ready for 2026. And Steve will be back next week. He's coming back from Ireland. I think he got a sheep or something like that. We'll see if the sheep is on the podcast. Lance, I appreciate you joining me here today. And as much as we talked about Hunter Greene, there's also the Elly De La Cruz of it all, where at least some of the plan is going to change for Elly De La Cruz next year, although it's not the biggest part that a lot of people are thinking, because whenever Nick Krall was asked, has there been any thought to him changing positions, he literally said no. And as much as Nick Krall loves to keep things close to the vest and tries to say the GM speak for a lot of different things and not give you an answer, he gave us an answer on that one. So it's like, okay, he is playing shortstop, but we look at everything that he's done to this point, and we made the argument last offseason. Well, Barry Larkin, we can't make that argument anymore. Like, it feels as though things just haven't progressed in a direction that we had expected to this point. And so for me, that makes me think, I don't necessarily know that I'm 100% sold that he shouldn't move, if that makes sense.
I can be convinced, but I maintain I don't understand the rush. He's 23. He's played 382 major league games at shortstop. And I can look at the skill set. Anybody can look at the skill set and say, man, I can project that guy to be an outfielder. What an arm in right field. What strides to cover ground if you put him in center field. And yet I'm going to go back to the word rush, because if you're going to move him, I have to be pushed by an obvious answer to replace him at shortstop. And if the obvious answer is Matt McLain over the shortstop, then my next question is, then who's your obvious answer to play second base? So I start pushing the dominoes around saying, give me the obvious answer that screams, you must move Elly. Did he have a frustrating year in the field? Yes. Some of that I think was lack of focus. Some of that I think was wear and tear. There was no reason he should have played every game last year and almost every inning of every game last season. I think if we include off-field stuff like what he had to deal with, sadly, with his family, I think his power slump at the plate may have been that classic take your bat into the field with you as an issue. I think if it was a lot of like mechanical things that you looked at Elly, and I know he's got long arms and levers and I get all that stuff, but there seemed like a lot of things it was simply focus and concentration. And that's the easiest thing to clean up. I don't say you got to move a guy because he lost focus on too many plays. I say work on your focus. So I again, and if you told me in 2 or 3 years he's moving to the outfield, it'd be a different story. Right now, I just go back to my word of Elly in the movie is what is the rush to do it right now? I'm a little bit more patient with him, and I'm not being pushed by something from behind that must move him off that spot because there's something else better coming.
Yeah, because it's not Edwin Arroyo. I know that Edwin Arroyo a couple of years ago was sort of earmarked as that reason, but it's not him. He's just not hitting in the minor leagues, and until he hits, there's not really a reason to push him to the major leagues. And so Matt McLain does make sense from a floor standpoint, albeit I don't think he has the ceiling as a glove at shortstop that Elly has. And that's the thing that frustrates me the most here is that it is clear nobody has a better ceiling when it comes to that position than Elly De La Cruz does. It's just his floor continues to be so low. And I think if he were to raise that floor, if he were to move those errors out of the equation, then we're not talking about this. I think that we're like, okay, he wasn't in the conversation for Gold Glove, but even last year when I was looking at defensive runs saved and outs above average, he wasn't even in the top 10. And I thought that's somewhere he should be. And so maybe that's the goal. Maybe that's what we're looking at for next year. But it feels as though it just seems as though the bigger picture for Elly De La Cruz is, dude, he could be Superman, but right now he's Clark Kent. And I think he lost his glasses.
Yeah, and look, I've heard a lot this offseason about Edwin Arroyo, and I think people think it's easy that he can magically go from Double-A in his first season to the major leagues and hit enough on a team that's already offensively challenged. It drives me crazy. Like people now say, "Oh, we'll just throw Edwin Arroyo in the infield, and that'll be fine." I'm like, well, look at what he did at Double-A, and he started to come on at Double-A, but it was his first season of Double-A. I look at. I've heard people say, well, they should go out and get Bo Bichette. And I'm like, well, then now you're dismissing the fact that Bo Bichette led the major leagues in errors just a couple of years ago. And so it goes back to I default to I think guys can mature and get better. And if you look at from Barry Larkin to even Dave Concepcion, or we have to go old school to pacify the Big Red Machine fans, there are shortstops all over the history of the game that made a lot of errors earlier in their career. Derek Jeter, Robin Yount, Ozzie Smith made errors early. Omar Vizquel made errors early, but they grew and developed and matured. And maybe I'm just bullish on the fact I think Elly can actually grow and develop and mature and become a better shortstop. I just don't feel 2 years in 382 games is enough of a sample size to say this is not going to work. We're done with this.
Yeah, just to kind of tell you exactly what we're thinking here about Edwin Arroyo and his bat. He's never been a guy that has just gone crazy with it. And when he got to Double-A last year, he played a total of 4 games, and he had a batting average on balls in play of 500. Those are things that are not going to continue. So the rest of his stats are a little bit, out there when it comes to hitting. And I'm with you on that one. I kind of feel like if you were to ask me to put a sizable bet one way or the other that somebody else would be better at shortstop or Elly would likely get better at shortstop this year, I think I would put the sizable money toward Elly getting better there. Let me ask you this, though, because I feel like there is a concerted effort, and the Reds have joined this effort. I've talked a lot with our friends over at Locked On Guardians and our friends over at Locked On Rays about this. This is a organizational pitching philosophy that they have from top to bottom, that fly balls are fine, because if you give up 1,000 fly balls, 900 of them are outs. Yep. And now the other 100 could be problematic, but at the same time, that puts a lot more pressure on the outfield than we previously had thought. Would we be better served seeing Elly De La Cruz in center field?
I think that's a fair point. I also think, and I'm not doubting Elly's ability to do it, but I think some would have probably thought when the Pirates moved O'Neill Cruz that, well, there's the solution. O'Neill Cruz is going to center field. He was the worst defensive by the metrics center fielder in baseball last year. Defensive runs number was a gigantic negative. So it wasn't an easy transition for him. Not everybody makes it as smoothly a move as somebody like Fernando Tatis Jr., who moves.
That's who everybody wants to compare to. But yeah, you're right. The O'Neill Cruz is still exists.
If there's going to be a move to get down the road and already make the move, that I'd like Elly much more in right field where you can use the cannon of his arm. He's not asked to cover as much ground moving left to right. I have vibes and visions of Eric Davis sometimes in center field and what it did to his body, unfortunately. So I just, and the fly in the ointment of that in right field is, well, wait a minute, you moved Marte out there, you told him to learn the position, he seemed to get better at it. Now you're going to tell him to move someplace else. So it goes back to my frustration of just moving pieces like it's a fantasy baseball team and nothing's automatic and guaranteed versus my idea, again, of just take a breath. And after maybe 2026, maybe something's more clear on Edwin Arroyo, and maybe you've got enough evidence to say, man, Elly, that's 3 seasons now where it just didn't show signs of getting better. Let's move you to the outfield.
You bring up a good point, and that's something that I really want to get into next, the whole idea of moving guys out of position and things like this and how the roster kind of churns a little bit, because we've hit the point that leading into 2026 the time for near misses and almosts are over for this front office. And that's got the pressure that's at 11 right now. There's still time to get in on this great introductory offer over on FanDuel. I know that we're in the middle of football season and all that stuff, but of course the World Series is starting on Friday night, and we've got the odds for the series winner. The Dodgers are favored, -220, no surprise there. And you've got the odds on the Blue Jays winning at +184. It's interesting because it kind of feels like I've been picking against the Dodgers all postseason, and I'm just not going to do it. Like, kind of feel like -220 is hard to put any kind of money on, but I think I'm picking the Dodgers to win this World Series. And if you've got a choice, you can go make yours over on FanDuel, and new users can place a $5 wager, and if it wins, you get $300 in bonus bets. That's a crazy good offer. Go download that FanDuel app today. If you can't watch us on YouTube, you can always listen to us on your favorite podcast app. We're on all of them out there and free and available every single day. All right, so Hunter Greene, Elly De La Cruz. This all points back to a couple of guys, Terry Francona, obviously, during the season, but now is the heyday for Nick Krall. And as much as I have been saying there's a lot of pressure on him to supplement this roster where he needs to, it needs a big bat in the middle of it, whether that's an outfielder or a DH, whatever that might be. He's got to go get that guy. And then, of course, you have the bullpen rebuild that's coming up too. But now with these things about Hunter and Elly, the biggest question for me is, like, I'm not saying, does your heart change for this team? I'm asking, what's your head think about it? Do we trust that they can do this? Because you make it to the playoffs, that means your window is open. Not, hey, we made it, we'll see you in 10 years.
No question. And part of my frustration in this year was, if you go back to 2022, and they make a seismic jump from 62 wins to 82 wins, and everybody thought, wow, man, they improved by 20 wins, so 10 more to get to 92 will be easy. And they took a step back, and then they bring in Terry, and they wind up winning 83. And I'm gonna say this till I'm blue in the face: 83 wins is one more win than where they were 2 years ago. I know they made the playoffs, but let's be honest, there has to be more in this time frame of these players. Tick tock, tick tock. The clock is ticking on all these guys who are young and becoming arbitration eligible, and that means the money keeps piling up and up and up. And there is a gap right now between, if you look at the needs of this organization, those needs can't be filled right now sitting in the minor leagues. The Arroyos and the Hector Rodriguez and Cam Colliers, they're spaced out and they're not ready to come right now. You can't wait and say, we are about scouting, drafting, developing our young guys, and just keep waiting for all of them to arrive and think all of them are going to hit. You've got to squeeze that gap, and that's by spending some money and getting more proven players. My biggest frustration with this team, and now I'm all worked up, there just aren't enough guys you can count on. There aren't enough guys I can write down on a piece of paper and say, put it in an envelope. This is what I know I'm going to get from this player in 2026. They don't have enough guys I know I can count on. There's too many question marks and hope for guys.
I saw I think it was a friend of mine who covers the A's had a tweet out about the number of guys that were nominated for Silver Slugger awards from the A's. And I was like, oh, Silver Slugger nominees out. And I know that there are no Reds on that list. So I'm not even going to go look. Just because that's where we are right now. Like, it feels like there's a lot of potential, and there's a lot of, boy, this, that, and the other, if this goes right, this could happen. But none of that's happened yet. And we're now also, and I laid out all of the things that Nick Krall's got to worry about. One of the things I forgot is that his key catcher is in his contract year now. Like, this is his final year of arbitration. And the last report of them doing any sort of contract extension was Tyler Stevenson felt as if a counter offer was so far off, he didn't even make one. And so there's a lot going on there where Alfredo Duno, the next heir apparent there behind or at the backstop, at best case could be, making a push for the majors in 2027. And that's probably in the middle of that year. So you've got a gap where, are you really that excited about Jose Trevino being your catcher number one, even at that one position? And that expands out to a lot of different things. Like, is Spencer Steer going to hit enough to be a first baseman? He can field enough to do it, but is he going to hit enough? Same with Key Brian Hayes. We kind of know he's not going to hit enough to be, a viable, awesome, everyday third baseman. It's just his glove is so very, very good. That's really where the attraction lied. And TJ Friedl is kind of getting to the point where we're wondering, like, where's this all going to go? And it all falls back to, can Nick Krall make the right moves, even with the guys that he has? Because Noelvi Marte was supposed to be a third baseman. He was traded for as a shortstop, and now he's playing right field. And all credit to him, looks like he's picking it up. But it feels like that is a coin that was flipped and landed on heads for the Reds. It could have easily landed on tails, like some of the other situations a la Christian Encarnacion's trained to have.
Yeah, it's real easy to do what they did in 2022, where you tear it all down and say, we're going to rebuild this thing. We're going to do it right. We're going to eliminate the peaks and valleys. We've acquired a lot of young talent we like. It's real easy to do that. And part of the cynical side of me always goes back to, when you do that, you can sell hope with prospects who aren't there yet, but you can dangle them as like the carrot in front of fans, say, oh, here, or a shiny object. Just wait, they're coming. There's no guarantee they're ever going to get here and be good. So it's frustrating from that standpoint of, at some point, and yes, Lux, Trevino, Singer, those were nice moves made last season, no question. But now is the classic push comes to shove moment where you got to do it as an organization, and it can't be missing on the Jamer Candelarios. It can't be the sunk cost of guys who aren't producing. You've got to nail it now, because I'm going to go back to, the clock is ticking on this organization, and you just can't spin your wheels in this window of opportunity. You can't. And that's going to mean, whether the Reds like it or not, that's going to mean spending some money, because they've left the gaps in the system that can't be all plugged by young players. It takes identifying other teams' talent and plugging it in on this major league roster.
Yeah, can we make a baseball roster version of the Wayne Gretzky quote? Where, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Well, a prospect always bats 1,000.
Yep.
Until he actually plays, and then you find out who he is. Because a prospect, and I know that I want to say that Steve, and I can't remember if he came up with this, so I'm sure somebody else probably said it before him. But he said that prospects are suspects until proven otherwise. Maybe that was Ken Brew. That might be a Ken Brew quote. Anyway, too many people talking in my head. But when it comes to prospects, we know what we're going to get, and that's a sheet of paper. But when they finally get out on the field, that's when everything really comes to a head. And CES was a perfect guy for that, because on paper, he was a 40 home run guy. And then he stepped into the batter's box, faced a couple of pitches, and we found out who he was. And granted, he can clobber the ball, and we will have the memory of his grand slam at Fenway for a long time. But when you ask about his overall profile as a player, I have a hard time trusting that he's part of the future of this team, albeit I was trying to pencil him in just a year ago.
And Jeff, the beauty of prospects from an organizational standpoint, not only can you dangle them as pieces of excitement, they're also cheap. I mean, let's be honest. It was 6 years of control, the first 3 at the major league minimum, the next 3 at arbitration. If you've got a bunch of young guys who are cheap, you have an obligation. You have to spend, you have to take advantage of that to spend in other areas. And if that means getting you out of your comfort zone of pick a number 120 million and pushing 140 or 150. Look around. That's the game of baseball today. You just can't survive on a bunch of cheap young prospects. You have to take advantage to supplement it with proven players, and that's going to cost you some money, and that's the reality of it.
And I know what people are thinking right now, because I've heard this argument before, and people are like, well, what about the Brewers? I'm going to say, well, what about them? Because they get to October and they get found out every single year, because they are really good. They are on the high end of the small markets when it comes to how they run their organization, the teams that they put together, and they do a great job. But when you get to the playoffs and it comes down to the Jimmies and the Joes rather than the X's and the O's, the Dodgers just have more. And to get past that team, you've got to at least play their game a little bit. You cannot shun free agency and shun trading for big name guys and expect it's all going to work out, because that's 2/3 of team building right there. So that's really where the trust, I think, in this front office is waning, if it was ever very strong. And that's where Nick Krall's got to go out and prove it. He could still prove it, and he's made some good moves. But like you mentioned, the Gavin Luxes of the world and the moves that he made this past offseason were very complimentary. He needs to make a box office feature move this offseason, or this team is going to be another 83 win. Hopefully somebody else collapses like the Mets did team in 2026.
I'm glad you bring up the Brewers, because I get that a lot as well. Well, why do the Brewers do it? How do the Brewers do it? And I always say the same thing. The Brewers do it because they're smarter than the Reds. I mean, that's the thing. How do you think the Brewers do it on that payroll? They nail more players. They pick out players from other organizations and see a skill set that they think they can make better when they bring it here. They don't dabble a lot in free agency, but when they do, it's mostly smart moves. They are a smart organization. The Reds need to be smarter. Well, let's be honest, both organizations.
Both teams, yeah.
They need to be smarter in what they do.
Yeah, it kind of feels like the mantra of Cincinnati sports right there when it comes to front offices. Like, please just be smarter. But Lance, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for giving me your time here today, and we'll definitely have you on throughout the offseason, hopefully to talk about a feature move or two that Nick Krall's got up his sleeve, maybe a contract extension here or there. Who knows? I'm hopeful, but I'm certainly realistic. I've become more realistic. I mean, you know that most people bill me as the most optimistic Reds fan in town, but Lord knows I've been beaten down these last couple of years. So I think realism is more the mantra, maybe positive realism. Is that or whatever? Anyway, feels like it's time to go. Thank you so much for checking out today's Locked On Reds podcast. And thank you for being a part of the show. Make sure that you hit subscribe. That way you don't miss anything that we've got coming for you all off season long. Like I said, Steve will be back next week, getting in from Ireland, and I'm sure he will be swimming through the Guinness to get to us next Monday. Now, make sure you go check out Locked On MLB, as Sully and Locked On MLB Game Night have you covered all the way through the World Series. Sucks. There's only like 7 games left at most, so then we'll be without baseball. But we'll be talking baseball all year long, because we are Locked On Reds every single day. All righty, sir.